Guncha, you can respond on behalf of the class.
Yes, sir. We can see the screen.
Okay, good. So, going to the financial leverage, let me go back to this question again. So look at this is hypothetical case of two companies, company A and company B. Both the companies are actually clone in terms of their operating metrics, the products they sell, something like that. There's all almost similar companies, and both the companies have got same assets, total assets same, and so 80,000, but only thing is that the company A is financed by debt to the extent of 50% and by equity also 50%. Whereas company B doesn't have any debt. So we can say financially company B is an unlevered company, whereas company A is a levered company. Okay, and so having debt in the capital structure says there is a levered company. You may have small debt, large debt, all those that is secondary. But the fact the company has debt in the capital structure, capital means I'm talking about the long-term finance, which is typically comprises of debt and equity. So if the company has a debt, then you can say the company is a levered company, financially levered company. Okay. Then both the companies have same sales of 1 lakh rupees each, and they have profit before interest tax. Interest and tax comes to 5,000. That means they are operating. No, sorry. Earlier I had made it how much? 20,000, correct? Yesterday. So let me change it to 20,000. Then I again go back to make it 5,000. So 20,000. So both the companies have operating profit margin 20%. That means their operating cost to sales ratio is 80%, both the companies. Whereas because the company A has a debt and which carries 10% interest, the company has 4,000 rupees interest to be paid, 10% of 40,000. Okay, whereas company B has no interest to pay because there is no debt. So accordingly, profit before tax 16,000, 20,000 respectively, and tax is 4,000 because tax is taken as 25% of PBT, and here it is 5,000. So finally, you got profit after tax 12,000, 15,000. Obviously, the company B is having more profit in net profit compared to company A because company B does not have interest to be deducted. Okay. So if you look at return on assets on a pre-tax basis, so we can say we will take this ratio profit before interest and tax to total assets, and that comes to 25%. Okay. Whereas when you go to return on equity, you can see here 12,000 divided by equity is 40,000, that comes to 30%, whereas it is 18.75%. The interesting thing here is that although both the companies are having same sales, same operating costs, same total assets, one company is able to earn a better return on equity compared to other company. Just not that they are earning more return on equity because they are producing more, they are selling more, their cost is less, not like that. Their operating attributes, performance metrics are same, whereas because of simple change in the capital structure, one company is having a more return on equity compared to second company. Company A is having more ROE compared to some company B. That is also this particular phenomena is also known as in the finance explanation. It is also known as called trading on equity. The concept trading on equity. We'll discuss more about this in capital structure, but anyway, since we are talking about financial statement analysis, so we are talking about these ratios also. So if you look at, then ROE is more. Now, as I told you, leverage, if you recall the example that I gave yesterday, in that our friend from West Champaran, I think, right? Or West Champaran, I think. So he was talking about the how in the crowded market he will like to. Finally, he said that he will go for on-geared vehicle, whereas in a highway like condition, he will like to have the benefit of having a geared vehicle. Okay, because in highways type of scenario, you have got good road, traffic is good, and lanes are there, so you can go with more speed. But if you try to go with more speed in Luna on-geared vehicle, so it will be dangerous. There is a constraint there. So you will not be able to take the benefit of good condition if you are ungeared vehicle. But similarly, you will be able to escape through a crowded market better, okay, compared to geared with the help of ungeared vehicle compared to geared vehicle. So that's where the gear, if you remember in your mechanics or your physics, that gear, what is the lever gear? You have, yes, same force, more result by applying gear, right? That's the basic concept of gear. So similarly here, everything is same, but because of this interest, because the debt which carries interest, you are able to have a more return on equity compared to in a levered company compared to company B. Okay. Now, that's the concept leverage here. Now, as I told you, this is a good condition. Now, suppose the profit goes down to 10,000. Let's see what happens. 10,000. So now you can see, okay, still company A is having better return on equity compared to company B. But if you look at the spread, how much spread is there now between two companies? Difference. Let's look at this. 1.88%. Whereas when it's a 20%, if you do, sorry, if I make it 20,000 and you can see the spread is 1.25%. As the profit goes down, the spread reduces. So now if I make it 6,000, let's say, what happens? You can see return on equity is 3.75% in case of company A, whereas company B is 5.63%. Now you see unlevered company is showing a better performance than the levered company. That means the condition is bad. Your levered company will, by having leverage will harm the company, because the question is that you have to pay 4,000 rupees interest, whether your PBIT is 6,000, 20,000, 50,000 or 1,000. Or even negative, you have to pay interest. Interest is a fixed cost. So presence of fixed cost is known as presence of leverage. Presence of financial fixed cost like interest is known as presence of financial leverage. Presence of operating fixed cost like rent, advertisement, other expenses, depreciation, that is called presence of operating leverage. Regarding operating leverage, I'll discuss later. But now we are talking about financial leverage. We'll discuss more about this leverage concept in the capital structure chapter. Okay. Ragini, is it okay now?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Any further doubt? No doubt? So you can move ahead now. So let me make it to original thing, 20,000. Okay. So let's go back to our exercise. So we have done up to long-term solvency and debt equity ratio 0.32. We have talked about that. This company has become a little more levered compared to earlier. If you take a total liabilities, you can see that in total liability, which includes long-term debt, short-term debt, as well as current liabilities. In this case, for every 1 rupee equity, you have 95-96 paisa other liabilities actually, whereas it was 78 rupees as such. Okay, then next thing, this particular ratio, interest coverage ratio, which is actually, bankers focus a lot on this. So they look at that, what is the interest earning capacity or paying capacity. So if you take a loan, why do you take a loan? You take a loan to suppose buy a machine or buy some asset, then which will be used for sales or will be helpful in producing and selling. That sales will give you revenue. Then you also have other operating day-to-day expenses. You remove that. Then you have some profit, and that profit should be used for paying interest. Otherwise, if that profit is not sufficient, then you have to borrow or you take somewhere some money and pay the interest, or you have to have past cash which can be used for paying interest. But ideally, you should use the money for a productive purpose, and that productive purpose should give you some profit or surplus, which should be sufficient to pay your interest. Okay, so that's why you take profit before interest and tax to interest as interest coverage ratio. So if you look at earlier, the interest coverage was 18.79, let's say 19. That means to pay 1 rupee of interest, you had earned 18 to 19 rupees of profit. Now you are earning around 13 rupees profit. So that way definitely you will be less comfortable, but 13.06 is not a big problem as such. Okay. Now I have a question for the as a brownie question here, that yes, even if the interest coverage ratio is very high, still company may face difficulty in paying interest. Somebody has to raise the hand, then I'll ask, and if the answer is correct, then brownie is there. Where is my notebook? Please raise your hand.
Sir,
You
can
got
you
my
please
question?
repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm repeating the question. Even if the company has a very good interest coverage ratio, still it may find it difficult to pay the interest. Okay, so that's the question. So you think over 1 minute and raise your hand. Okay, Abhyukt has already raised. We'll go one by one. Let me just organize my notebook where I have to write your name. Just a second. Yeah. Abhyukt, you have raised your hand. You have put it down now. Only now I can see only Sheetal's name.
No, sir, I thought you said take 1 minute, so I thought I'd put it down.
Okay, no problem. Anyone else? Okay, Abhyukt, you can go ahead.
So I think one reason the company might not be able to pay back its debt is because if the cash flow is poor, rather than based on the actual system, they might have booked the revenue, but they might not have received the money from they might not have received the trade receivables. So then they would find it difficult to pay off the interest because the bank would only want cash.
Okay, okay, Sheetal. Sheetal has put it down.
So actually, I was thinking the same thing. That revenue was on credit and they haven't received the money yet.
Okay, very good. So both of you get it because I'll give you the brownie for both of you. Okay, very good. I'm happy with the answer. That means some of you are actually going beyond the class, looking at some other literature, reading it. That's good. That's a good sign for me. I am happy about it. Yes, you may have profit because profit is because on accrual basis, as Abhyukt has already mentioned. And so you have revenue, you have expenses, but you may not have operating cash flow. So only if you have got operating cash flow generated, then that operating cash flow should be, we discussed that in the one of the first few classes, that should be generated so that you can pay your interest. Otherwise, if you do not generate cash from operation and if you have to pay the interest and repay the principal, you have to possibly use your existing old in previous year's cash, or you have to go for what, taking another finance, non-loan or something like that, or raise equity. So you have to depend on external finances to pay the interest and the principal asset, which is not a good sign for any company. So that's why what we do another, of course, there is no scope for doing that SEO here. We look at cash flow to interest coverage ratio. So what we do here, we find out the cash flow. So one more thing I'll say, cash flow, operating cash flow, interest. But here you do not have those details about operating because you do not have depreciation, etc., etc. So I cannot find it out. So, but there is another good ratio which you can use for finding out the interest paying capacity of the particular company. Okay, then we go to the next part of the ratio analysis, financial analysis, that is called capital market standing. With the help of in the context of capital market, how this company is doing. So one of the very popular ratio that we must have come across in the when somebody has an interest in stock market, indicators, etc. There is one very popular ratio, the price earning ratio or price earning multiple. Very simple. Price earning ratio is nothing but market price per share divided by earnings per share. And I hope those data are there. Market price per share that are not available here. Is there? Not there? No. So I have to give that. I should have got it here. You do not have market price data here, correct? In this spreadsheet. Okay, let me take these figures. Okay, so let's assuming these are the share prices. Then we talk about, okay, let me take some other figures here. Let's say 45. Let's not confuse it earlier, that example. Let's say it is 39 and maybe last year it was 30, let's say. Okay, so this is your share price in rupees. Okay, and so what is your earnings? What is your first you have to find out earnings per share. Please mute Ram Singh Yadav. Okay, so first we find out the profit after tax divided number of shares. There is no preference shares, so you do not have to remove the preference dividend. I have discussed the preference shares. I think I have discussed about the preference share or not. I guess. So earnings per share is profit after tax. Profit after tax is here. Divided by number of shares. Number of shares is equity, that is 25,000 rupees, I think. Divided by 10. Because 10 rupees face value, so number of shares will be 2,500. So that gives me 4.48. And if I drag it here, so 5.16, earnings per share has definitely declined because then your profit has declined for this company. So EPS has declined. Okay. That's what. Then market price to earnings per share, that price earning ratio divided by 45 divided by 4.48, 10.04 and 7.5 is very okay, because the hypothetical figure, although the company's profit has declined, but still PE ratio has gone up. That may be some other reason behind it. We are not discussing about that in this class. Okay. So price earning ratio multiple is 7.56 versus 10.04. What does it say? Your share is traded at 10 times or 7.10 times compared to your earnings per share. Now, what is the utility of this particular ratio 10, which is good or bad? Can somebody tell me whether it is good or bad? 7.56 has become 10.04. Is it good or bad?
Sir, the more will it be, it should be bad.
Pardon? Yes, Aditya?
Sir, means if it is more, it should be bad, right?
Or more? Okay. Right. Anyone else? I think somebody else was trying to answer. Anyone else?
Sir, good for the company, bad for the investor.
Good for the company, bad for the investor. How good for the company? Company feels happy that yes, my share is quoted at high price, right? And why
Yes,
bad for
sir.
investor?
They have to pay more they have to pay more per unit revenue if they have
Per
to
unit
buy a
profit, not revenue, per unit revenue,
yeah,
not
sorry, per unit profit.
profit.
Sorry. Yeah, per unit profit.
Okay, right. It's very, now if you look at the present market, If you look at the average in case of Sensex P multiple, how much is that now? Let's go for today. Sensex P ratio is 25 point. They have taken a weighted average, something like that. Overall, all the share 25.68, 25.67 in January. I can see here July. Okay, this is July news. Okay, so if you go to today's, I don't know it is there or not. But anyway, it is definitely, if it's July it was 25, it must be around 27, 28 now. Okay. Anyway, that's another thing. I just quickly searched that. So, see, P ratio is again relative metric. P ratio on its own has no meaning, that particular figure. Yes, 7.56 has become 10.04, means the share has become more valuable compared to last year, previous year. Okay, that's what the thing here. That is the interpretation. So if you have a 2 P multiple for two different companies, two different stocks, then higher the P ratio, more valuable. Now what happens? Suppose you have an average P ratio of the certain company in a particular sector. So average P ratio, let's say 14. Okay, for different stocks in a particular sector. Okay. Now if your company, suppose you are looking at a company, company share, whether you may have some shares and you would like to buy more share or you may like to sell the share. So average P multiple for the industry is, let's say 14, whereas the P ratio of your company that you're looking at is, let's say 16. What should you do? Assuming you are holding the shares and you are intend to either buy more shares or sell the shares. You have two alternatives. What shall you do as a reaction to that? Average P multiple is 14, whereas your P multiple is 16.
So you should find out why your P ratio is higher. If there's some good reason for it, then you can evaluate it. But if there isn't, then you should probably sell it because it's an abnormal price for the company which you hold just because of market conditions.
Okay. So, yes, other things remaining constant, that there is no specific thing to this particular company. Yes, company can have a very good, very high growth opportunity. That's why it may be at the higher end of the P multiple in the industry itself. That could be there. Otherwise, is normal condition. Every company is a normal condition. So higher P ratio than average P ratio looks like that is an overvalued share. So overvalued share means you will like to sell it because it is likely that P ratio will decline. P ratio will decline to a 14 means that is expected to the average. That means your share price will come down. So share price will come down in future means it's just selling up. You sell it now, it's selling opportunities. And if everybody like that will like to sell because of this overvaluation, automatically the share price will go down in the market, may take the signal. Similarly, if your P ratio is lower than the average, it possibly says the share is undervalued and it may be having a buying opportunity. But anyway, there's a caveat here. Your share price buying selling decision is not based on only PE multiple. I am talking about a case where there is nothing to be, no other thing to look at. If you are going to look at only P multiple, in that case only, higher the P ratio, it is overvalued, lower the P ratio is undervalued. Undervalued means it gives a buying opportunity, overvalued gives a selling opportunity. But somebody may disagree with that. Somebody may say, no, my overvaluation, undervaluation analysis may depend on some other factor of the company, not only P ratio. Then your entire analysis will be different. So which we discussed in case of fundamental analysis in a security analysis. If you are taking a subject like equity analysis or equity valuation, security analysis, there you have one concept, one unit called fundamental analysis. Okay, so there you discuss more about the company and then find out whether the company share is worth buying or selling, or finding the price itself, which is beyond the scope of this particular class or the subject as such. Okay, so next we go to another ratio, price to book ratio, where what you do here, we find out the book value of share. Book stands for accounting books. Okay, books of accounts. So book value per share. that is nothing but book value of equity by divided number of shares. So what is my book value of equity for 2000x1, 2000x2? What is the book value? Anyone? Value of equity is how much? No one is responding.
25,000.
Anyone else?
36,800.
See, when I say value of equity in a company, it includes both share capital and reserves and surplus. So that way, 36,800 and 33,600 are the book value of equity for 2000 X2 and X1 respectively. Okay, this is your value of equity, not this one, because you are liable to both the equity for both the components, your share capital as well as reserves and surplus. So maybe people have invested 25,000, but overall it has earned 11,800 profit accumulated, and that's why total value of equity is now 36,800. So book value per share will be how much? 36,800 divided by number of shares. So number of shares again 25,000 by 10. I am taken face value of 10. That's why. So then I can drag it because number of shares. So if you look at book value of share has gone up 13.4 plus 14.72. Now price to book ratio is nothing but market price per share divided by book value per share. So interpretation is same. How you interpret price earning ratio, same way also you interpret price to book ratio. More the ratio, more value overvaluation, on less the ratio undervaluation. More or less compared to benchmark. But anyway, price to book ratio, we have done it because you may come across this ratio in textbook. We have done that, but price to book ratio is not a very popular and effective ratio as such. Okay, because price of a particular share of the company may not be driven by the book value. So what is book value by such? It is nothing but assets minus liability. That is equity. That divided by number of shares gives you book value per share. But that means we are assuming the share price is a function of assets held by the company. But that is not the fact, that is not correct. Then share price is driven by profit, definitely company's performance, no doubt about that. And the company's performance is not driven only by the assets that you hold, it may be driven by something else which is not part of the balance sheet. Then definitely price to book ratio is not a right metric to evaluate a company's performance or capital market performance. But yes, if you say the company's operating performance, revenue, profit, etc. is driven by the assets held, mostly driven by the assets held by the company, then definitely price to book ratio could be a metric to consider. Okay, I'll talk about those things little more. If today there is time, I'll show an interesting report to you where how the things are actually changing as far as the financial statement data are concerned. The reaction of the market to the financial statement data. We'll talk about that. If there is some, it's a very interesting study. I'll share that either today or in the next class. All right. So 3.06, 2.90, that's what we got. Price earning ratio we got price to book ratio. Then one more ratio that we look at is called total return to shareholders. Okay. So total return to shareholders is very simple. What do we do there? We find out the shareholders get two returns. Typically, two returns they get. Just a second. Okay, so you can say TRS or you can, or also known as TSR. Total returns to shareholder or total shareholder return. Okay, so as a shareholder, what is that you get? As an investor, what is that you get and from equity? Yes, anyone else? Anyone?
Dividend.
One is you get dividend. Another that you get is capital gain. Expected, that share price, that is called change in
Share
capital
price.
gain or loss. Okay, change in market price of share. Okay, so what will be TSR then, or TRS will be for a particular year, TRST, let's say dividend for T period plus change in market price, that is market price T minus market price T minus 1 divided by market price per share T minus 1. So if you have invested this much amount, if you have invested this much amount at the beginning of the year, you get this much dividend at the end of the year or during the year, and you get this difference in market price as either a gain or loss. But please keep in mind, this difference is a notional gain or notional loss. You will actually gain a actual gain loss if you sell this share. If you don't sell this share, it is a notional gain, notional loss. Okay, right? So let me go back to your, let us go to that spreadsheet.
Sir, what will this equation be for preference shareholder?
Same. Preference shareholder do not use this ratio actually, but that is the same. Ratio will not be changed. Okay, so let's go to, I have given an example here, TSR. So look at here, because in our FSA exercise, that say dividend warners, a hypothetical company where it has declared 4 rupees, 4.5 or 5.5 like that dividend. Now what is the TSR? We can do this for 3 years because we have your 0 data also. So what will be the TSR then? Dividend plus, let me put a bracket here, dividend plus change in share price, that is this minus previous year price, all divided by this one. So 20.59%. So if I drag it, so you can see here the TSR or TRS for this share has gone up from 17.5 to 29.07. Further, it has declined to 20.59%. So total share return, that is very one of the typically the consulting companies like McKinsey use this metric for analyzing the company's performance. I have seen that big companies, they look at this very simple ratio for a lot of meaning. At the end of the day, as a shareholder, we are interested in some dividend. We are also interested in some change in the market price. Okay. So this is another exercise here. You can download this spreadsheet and solve the exercise on your own. Whatever you have done exercise 1, you can do also for exercise 2. Try to practice those things. This is not an assignment for you, but you can always try doing that. Okay. So with this, more or less, we have covered financial statement analysis. Okay, where you discuss comparative analysis, common size statement, trend analysis. You talked about also majorly focused on the financial ratios as such. All right. Any doubt at this point of time? No doubt. Very good.
sir.
Yes.
The share price mentioned is the price of the share on the last day of the year, or is it something like average across the year? Used for the P ratio?
P ratio, ideally we can take the year end as such, but if you are taking average, you take average for every year like that.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Aditi, what is the 05 plus? You typed?
So it was by mistake, like some keys got pressed.
Okay, okay, right. Right. So now we move on to a very another unit in the, let me, no screen now, no? Okay. Lakshya, are you there, Lakshya Sharma?
Yes, sir.
Lakshya, suppose you have a grandfather,
Yes, sir.
either from this side, okay?
Yes, sir.
Right, he likes you, hopefully. Definitely,
sir.
grandparents like their grandchildren, no doubt about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he is offering you that you take 10 lakh rupees now, okay?
Yes, sir.
Or rupees 1 lakh every year, starting from the end of this year till infinite. Okay?
Yes,
It
sir.
will be there. A trust is found when you get this money. Which one will you go for?
Sir, the first one.
First one.
Yes, sir.
How come? First one you will go for?
So maybe due to inflation, the future money will lost its importance or the price.
Let's
So,
say you will say you will get 50 lakh rupees, Baba. Suppose 50 years. It will continue to come 100 years. So it will be
sir,
1 lakh, 1 crore.
but due to inflation, 1 unit of rupees today
Let
will
it
be.
be, let it be on inflation. How much? What will happen? So if I discount the inflation, what will happen? What is the inflation rate?
Sir, inflation rate is general rise in prices.
What name? What is the number now?
Now it would be around 4% in India.
Okay, so if it is 1 lakh rupees, so 1 lakh rupees next year will be equal to 1.04, 1 by 1 plus 0.04,
Yes, sir.
right? Then another 1 lakh next year, 1.04 to the power 2. So like this, 1 by 1.04 to the power infinity. Okay.
Yes,
Now
sir.
tell me all of you please find out the value. Apply geometric progression. All of you do it your notes.
So is it 26 lakh rupees?
I don't know. Let me ask anyone for this. Lekhraj, can you answer this question?
Yes, sir.
Tell me the value. Apply
25.
geometric progression.
Sir, 25.
25.
Yes, sir.
25 lakh.
Yes, sir.
So now you say, all of you say that 25 lakh? Yes, should be. And whom did he ask? Lakshya. Now tell me, Lakshya, which is good?
So 25 lakh.
Rahul is answering 25 lakh in chat. Correct. Lakshya, which will go for now?
So 25 lakhs, sir.
Then you said first one immediately. How is that? You are losing an opportunity of 15 lakh rupees over.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So anyway, the point that we're talking about here is that why we can't compare these two things so easily. Whether 10 lakh rupees is coming today, whereas 1 lakh rupees is coming further down. Okay. Right. So now, okay, let me tell you one more thing here. Suppose I start getting, if you start getting it at the beginning of the year. Okay. At the beginning of the year, instead of at the end of the year. Every year, but the beginning of the year. What will be the value? Raise your hand. Don't answer it. What will be the value? So I have got 3 hands raised. Good. But I don't know. Okay, so Soumya, what the answer?
Sir, 26 lakhs.
Soumya. Okay, Nikhil.
Sir, same 26.
Akshit, Prakhar.
26 only.
26. Prakhar also 26. Okay.
26, sir.
Right. Okay. So actually what is happening here? It is an infinite series progression, na? So whether you take now what will happen? It become 1 plus this because it's infinite. So you get actually 1 lakh rupees extra here. So that's why it becomes 26 lakh because this particular series is infinite, na? So you are getting actually 1 lakh extra. So it becomes 26 lakh. Okay. Anyway, so that's the what I'm talking about here is that the concept talked about here is time value of money. So what I'll do here, I'll ask you certain, we will not talk about the formula, etc., etc. I'll just narrate some situations and I'll ask the answer as such. Okay. All of you please try to attempt the answer because these are all very simple things as such. Okay. Right. Now, next, let's say that I need rupees 10 lakh at the
Sir?
yes.
Sir, like if we take the 10 lakh today, it will double in the time period of 18 years at 4%. So like it is better to take 10 lakhs now. In lifetime, we are getting there 26 lakh, but if we take 10 lakhs now, it will double in the next 18 years, and if in more than next 36 years, it would be 40 lakhs.
But 20 lakh you bring it to today. So 20 lakh cannot be compared 10 lakh, na? Because they are two different times.
No, sir. If we are taking 1 lakh every year, it is better to take 10 lakh at a time.
But 10 lakh at a time, then what will happen to that? What shall you do with that?
So like its value is going to like we can get an interest on that, right?
How?
Interest on 1 lakh also. You aren't investing 1 lakh. You are saying you will invest 10 lakh.
I got your concept that in 18 year it will double. But 18 year 20 lakh, you have to bring it to today, na? So if you do that, 20 lakh divided by 1.04 to the power 18, how much it will become? How much? It will be 10 lakh only. You cannot compare like that. You have to bring everything at one particular point of time. Then only you can compare. Okay. But yes, if you are saying I'll take 1 lakh rupees and I'll invest at a rate of interest more than 4%, okay, then your entire things will change. Okay. Right? Now, actually, the 4% inflation, that is one thing. But suppose if somebody will invest at 10%, what will happen then? What will be the value again?
It will double in 7.2 years.
Double we are talking about. What is the present value? 1 lakh rupees invest at 10%.
Including inflation.
No, inflation you ignore now. Inflation is factored in the interest rate now. Interest rate is subject to factor in inflation also.
Sir, after how much time? 18 years only.
Interest rate is by default nominal. Okay. Unless and other is mentioned, interest rate is nominal. Nominal interest is nothing but real interest rate plus what? Inflation. So if I say simply 10% interest rate, I say it is nominal. If I say nominal means nominal includes real as well as inflation. So it's 4% inflation, 6% is a real interest rate, 4% inflation, nominal is 10%. Okay. So anyway, so let me take it further. So my point is that again, I got 10 lakh rupees versus 1 lakh every year. These are not comparable. I have to bring it to one particular point of time, right? So then I do that. So apply geometry progress, whatever that may be, that what at the end of the day, the amount approximates to A by R. R is here what? Interest rate. But in geometric progression, R is your what? The growth, nah? The ratio. But here we are taking A by R, or you can say A by I. It is better. Okay, I is nothing but interest rate or discounting factor. Okay, so if it is discounting rate is 10% or interest rate is 10%, then 1 lakh divided by 0.10 is also 10 lakh. So you may be indifferent. Whether I take 1 lakh every year or 10 lakh today, I will be indifferent as such. Okay. If that money is more than 10 lakh offered to you today, you will go for that. Because you will take 10, let's say it is 11 lakh. So what shall you do? You take 11 lakh rupees and put in a fixed deposit and you get 1.10 lakh every year. So instead of 1 lakh every year the grandparent giving to you, you will going to get 1.10 lakh every year from on your own. And secondly, the money is also with you. That is another advantage. So that in that case, the 10 lakh lump sum is better option than what? 1 lakh every year, because your interest rate is, you can take and that keep that money in somewhere where you will get 11% interest. Okay. Right. Yes, that is one. Suppose this particular another option is given to you. Suppose you are going to get 50,000 rupees in year 1, which will grow at 5% till perpetuity. Okay. And your interest is, let's say, 10%. That is one option given to you. Second option is that you will ask for lump sum. So this versus a lump sum. Are you getting my point? This versus lump sum.
Growth and interest in this case.
Pardon?
So what is the difference between growth and interest in this case?
Interest is discounting factor. Growth is every year it will grow. Suppose 50,000 is first year, year 1 end of year 1, year 2. So year 1 you get 50,000, year 2 we get 50,000, 250, I think, right? 5% growth, like that it will go till perpetuity. That is one series you are assured, or you get a lump sum, or you say, okay, you don't want that, you take a lump sum amount today. What will be that lump sum amount? So in your geometric progression, your ratio will change to what?
1.05 upon 1.1.
Yeah, 1 plus G by 1 plus I, right? That means it becomes 1.05 divided by 1.10. You apply that again, so you will find some value, okay? And that value approximates to, the value approximates to A1. A1 means first cash flow divided by I minus G. So what is A1 first year? 50,000 divided by I 0.10 minus 0.05. How much it comes to? How much is this? 25 lakh? 20 lakh?
10 lakh.
10 lakh, okay. Okay, so 10 lakh, 50,000 growing at 5% every year till perpetuity, same as 1 lakh rupees every year without perpetuity. This is called perpetuity with growth. Okay, right. Okay, let's say you have another investment option. Yes.
Sir, interest in this means inflation.
No. Interest rate is that much. If you take the money, you can put somewhere, you'll get that much interest.
Then why is my money capping after infinity time? It should keep on increasing, right?
How can you will get that amount, na? Nobody is giving you more than that. The amount is 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees in the first case. And that 1 lakh rupees is that point of time. You are bringing it to today. You are not going to get more because inflation is there. Your inflation you factor in your discounting factor. Okay. Suppose I tell you that I will give you 1 lakh, I will give you 10,000 rupees at the end of this year. Okay. Right? So do you think it will be more than 10,000 at the end of this year because inflation? No. What you will do that? Although 10,000 rupees are going to get at the end of this year, but if you have to evaluate today, okay, you expect maybe 5% inflation or something like that. So 10,000 tomorrow or at the end of 1 year will be equivalent to X rupees today. Because if you are able to purchase 100 items today with that 10,000 rupees, possibly you will be able to purchase maybe 94, 96, 95 items at that point of time. So you say no, 10,000 rupees tomorrow is actually worth less than 10,000 rupees today. That way you factor. You cannot say 10,000 rupees will become automatically more because inflation is there. I hope I have clarified.
Sir, my question actually is, suppose if I am getting 50,000 rupees this year and 50,000, 250 rupees next year and so on, the money is increasing. And every year I put it in the bank and I am getting interest out of it. Then why is my money capping out at 10 lakhs? It should keep on increasing.
No,
right?
that's what now. Okay, very good. So how much you are going to get interest? Tell me.
So
Tell me
10% interest.
That is factored here, na? Automatically.
So 10 lakh rupees is the cap on the interest or the amount?
No, it's total amount, all amount together. Whatever cash flow you are getting.
So that's what my question is. Why is it capping out? Because interest is giving me money, even growth is giving me money. I'm getting money every year.
You do that, you discount it, you calculate, you tell me a different figure, how it is more. See, a money,
Sir, actually,
let
the
it be 1
principal is
lakh
also
rupees.
increasing every year.
Let
Our
it be 1
principal
lakh
amount
rupees or
is
2
also-
lakh rupees. No, let it be 1 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees. At the end of 100 year, what is the value today? Tell me. 1 lakh rupees at the end of 100 year or 1000 year. What will value today? How much this comes to? So after a certain point of time, the amount becomes negligible in terms of today's value. So you have to bring that money to today and compare it. Okay. To bring that money to today, you need a discounting factor. What is discounting factor? Is nothing but the opportunity cost. What is opportunity cost? What is the interest that you will get if you put the money? So your interest, as you told, is 10%. Okay. So there is no capping as. So you are looking at the value of the money, a future cash flow, which is going to start from this year end onward till perpetuity. But you are now going to make a decision today. So you have to bring that cash flow calculation to today. That's your discounting. Yeah, correctly you told 10% interest rate. No doubt. That's a 10% will become discounting factor. So what is that you're talking about here anyway? Let's look at that. Future value is nothing but PV into 1 plus R to the power N, right? Are you getting my point? So what is the present value then? Future value divided by 1 plus R to the power N. You got it? Or still have doubt?
Yes, sir. I think I understood now.
So this is the concept we have been discussing. Without talking about this formula, I started discussing this as such. Okay. So let me give one more example. There's an investment option. See, in this exercise, in this particular time value of money, I am also concurrently discussing something called valuation of securities. There's an investment option which will give you year 1 at the end of year 1. It will give you 10 rupees. Year 2, it will give you rupees, let's say 15. Year 3, it will give you rupees 18. And afterwards, it will grow at 6% till perpetuity. Okay. Now, how much would you like to pay for it? How much will you like to pay for this investment today, assuming your required rate of return as 12%. Okay. How do you go about this? So you have to find out today's value. Value 0 is how much? Value 0 is nothing but what? Cash flow I divided by 1 plus I to the power T. Summation of this T stands from 1 to N. That is your generic valuation formula. Okay. So how do you go about it then? How do you go about it? So what will do now?
So you just add it. So 10 upon, so if at the end of year 1 we get rupees 10, so 10 upon 1.12.
So first of all, what will happen is discount them. Yes, first of all, we'll find out the present value of cash flow from 1 to 3. Let's do that. What is present value of cash flow 1 to 3 then? 10 by 1 point, how much? 1 2 plus 15 by 1 plus 1 2 to the power 2 plus last one is how much? 18 by 1.1 to the power 3. Whatever value you get, that is 1, that is x. Okay. Then you are going to get what? 18 into, you are going to get how much? And year 4, how much will you get? What will be your year 4 cash flow? 18 rupees into 1 point what?
06.
06. Okay. So that is going to continue like that. It will go up to your 5 like that. Okay. Now if you look at, I told you V0 is equal to A1 AI divided by A1 actually. Okay. A1 divided by I minus, okay. Sorry, AI divided by R minus G. Okay. But your I is what? Which year here? What is I here? What is the I here? I is 4. So if I take the cash flow from 4th year onward till perpetuity, and if you have to apply this formula for present value, what will be this V0 then? V0 will be how much? V0 will be known as what? It will be V0 or something else. The 0 will be something else, na? I think I'm not able.
So V4.
So V3.
V3, correct. Right? So V3 is equal to now what? Cash flow 4 divided by R minus G. So what is my V3 then? As per my data, 18 into 1.06, that is your cash flow 4. R is how much? 0.12 minus 0. Growth is how much? Growth is 0.06. So how much this comes to? Can somebody quickly tell me this answer?
318.
318. 318.
Yeah.
Okay, around 318. So now what I have, this is your, this is 318. Okay. So finally my value is what? What is my, but I have to bring it to what? I have to bring it, okay. This is also called terminal value. I can say TV3. Okay. Terminal value. So what is my value then? Finally, my value 0 is equal to, let me bring this particular thing here. We have got what? 10, 15 and 18. So 10 by 1.12 to the power 1 plus 15 divided by 1.1 to the power 2 plus 18 divided by 1.1 to the power 3 plus 318 divided by what? 1.1 to the power what? 3 or 4?
3.
3, because it is the 3rd year. You bring it to today to the power 3. Okay. That is called whatever value you get. That is the whatever value. Okay. This is called a case of multi-stage growth model. Okay. Multi-stage growth model. So this was a high stage growth and this is a normal stage growth. This is high stage and this is a normal growth rate. This particular 4th year onward. Okay. So 9:15, if you go to your respective section class, I'll finish this class, my discussion here only. Then in the next class, we'll talk more about this values, time value of money, along with valuation of securities. Okay. And